Hi everyone, welcome to the Filmywatchlist podcast. My name is Richard Keeney.
And joining him is myself, David Devoy, again. Sober this time.
Which was last time?
Well, I was. It was a Saturday, of course I was.
Terribly drunk. Okay, so today we're going to review Three Billboards Outside of Ebbing, Missouri, directed by Martin McDonagh, written by him also. It stars Frances McDormand, Woody Harrelson, and Sam Rockwell. A mother personally challenges the local authorities to solve her daughter's murder when they fail to catch the culprit. Dave, what did you think of Three Billboards?
So, first off, it's definitely, I mean, a lot of people have been saying that it's his best film, you know, at least since In Bruges, or his, Martin McDonagh's best film he's made yet. I would be of the opinion that it's the best film that he's made yet. He has only made the three, though, isn't that right?
Three and the short film 6-shooter.
Yeah, 6-shooter, which won the Oscar for best short film a few years ago. So, I really liked it. I thought it was really well written, and there was a lot in it that I liked and I thought worked really well. And there was, you know, a few things in it that we'll discuss that I didn't think really worked or were maybe a bit unnecessary. But I thought the film did a really good job in walking the fine line between, you know, comedy and drama, because it is essentially a black comedy, but it's almost like flat out comedy sometimes, like such as the rate of laughs. But what I was most impressed with is, you know, it's kind of a heavy subject matter. You know, this mother, you know, frustrated with the authorities, and the authorities who have been you know, up to no good in terms of racially abusing some of the black citizens of Ebbing, Missouri. I mean, well, first off, when the film opens up and, you know, Frances McDormand decides to do what she does, and that she rents out these 3 billboards to advertise the fact that her daughter's killer and rapist hasn't been found, and she wants to indict the police department, and particularly Sheriff Willoughby, played by Woody Harrelson. I've just completely lost my train of thought. When she puts up the 3 billboards, and, you know, she's asked why did she, you know, the police are too busy torturing black folk, and yeah, I thought the film got off to a really strong start, and within a few minutes of watching the film, there was a lot that gripped me. I think particularly the open shot was very cinematic and really good. There was a brilliant moment acting wise from Frances McDormand, where the moment she decides to use 3 empty billboards, she decides to rent them out and to, you know, advertise this to draw attention to the police. She has this brilliant moment where she doesn't say anything. She kind of, like, you know, looks at the 3 billboards, and you can see she has the idea to do it. She kind of like bites her nail, like. But there was a lot of good moments in it from the opening. Like, I thought the opening was near perfect, and straight away we get a really good indication of the kind of film that we're going to see, and the kind of performance we're going to see from Frances McDormand, who, you know, is a really strong actress, and, you know, no exception in this. She's brilliant. I thought overall where the film really succeeded, I know this is kind of segueing and kind of meandering, I'm not really giving a structured
We'll get into all
review
anyway,
of it from beginning to end. But what I was most impressed with was how well it was directed. I thought it could have very easily been heavy-handedly directed, where it walks too fine a line between comedy and drama, to the point where, you know, a more blackly comic scene or a more serious dramatic scene wouldn't have its full effect, because, you know, the comedy and drama are working against each other. But I think the material that McDonagh has used to, you know, it's his screenplay that he's written. What I'm most impressed with is the way he gets the balance, like, near perfect. I think it works really well as a black comedy, and I was expecting, like a lot of McDonagh films, you know, lots of profanity, which there is, you know, slight aestheticization of violence, which there is, dwarf characters to make an appearance, which there is, as we saw in Bruges. Peter Dinklage makes his appearance as the dwarf. He seems to have a thing for dwarfs in his movies.
He mentions Don't Look Now in it as well.
Yes, yeah, of course, with that freaky dwarf woman thing at the end. But
that made me have a moment where it was just like, shit, In Bruges is just Don't Look Now. Because I'll get into that.
Oh, because they're in Europe and stuff.
But at the end, he mistakes someone for a child when they're a dwarf. as well, and they have this whole thing where it's like the actress Chloe, what's she called?
Oh, the French one, yeah.
Yeah, she says the film she's making is a homage of Nicholas Ray's Don't Look Now.
Oh,
so
I never noticed that.
He's obsessed with that movie.
Piece that
anyway,
together.
that's a tangent.
Well, The Dwarf and In Bruges had a plot usage. I don't think. But anyway, we'll get to that in terms of slight criticisms of the film. But I was really, really impressed with the dramatic elements of the film because, you know, it could have been very one-dimensionally witty, poppy, darkly, cynically, blackly comic and violent, and Frances McDormand could have just demonstrated a lot of anger for the whole film and a lot of kind of cynical, you know, wordplay filled anger. You know, he's got a really good ear for dialogue, McDonagh, and you know, every time you're going into a Martin McDonagh film, well, you know, you've seen In Bruges and Seven Psychopaths, and if you're familiar with his plays, like he you know, comparisons to Tarantino have been justified. I think given the ear for dialogue he has. So every time you go into a movie, you're expecting something. I think Sam Rockwell said, like, every time you open up a Martin McDonagh script, you know, it's like opening a Christmas present. You know, you don't know what you're going to get, but you know you're going to be happy. And
I see him as like an emotional Tarantino. He's got like kind of mixed, not just because of Frances McDormand, but there's kind of a Coen Brothers vibe as well. Like he cares about his characters enough, and then Tarantino kind of goes more. He cares about his characters, but he doesn't ever get too emotional, or he doesn't humanize his characters as much. Only in Jackie Brown. Like some of the characters in Tarantino are more caricatures.
yeah,
They're caricatures here with McDonagh, but I feel like he deeply cares about humanizing them as well. Anyway.
Yeah, like I think that's something that really, really worked really well. Like on that note of characters and acting, like first off, you know, Frances McDormand, she's getting all the great reviews for her performance, and that's certainly the best performance she's given in a number of years. And again, I think she very easily could have, I think with a lesser actress, it could have just been a very kind of a one-noted performance. I
Meryl
think.
Streep.
Yeah, wow. God, can you imagine? Meryl Streep is the Woody Harrelson character. But I think like with a lesser actress or someone with lesser talent in the lead role, it could have been a very kind of one-note, one-dimensional performance. Like I could kind of sense that from how good Frances McDormand was, because there's anger and there's, you know, resentment and bitterness, and you know, she's not afraid to kind of get her claws out and, you know, be flippant and not really care, and, you know, stand up to the police. You know, hence the whole thing of getting the billboards. But, you know, grief as well is another big thing. And, you know, I think what the film really did well was, you know, not just showing us the black comedy side of it and the grim side of it, but, you know, the grief side of it as well. You know, the moments of drama, the little moments where we kind of went, oh God, yeah, that's, you know. There's just a couple of scenes in particular where Frances McDormand does a few little things, kind of nuanced, that just work so well. Dramatically, they just work brilliantly. And that goes for the comedy as well. Like there's one particular notable scene when, you know, in the aftermath of putting the billboards up and pissing off the whole town because they all love Sheriff Willoughby and his name is plastered all over these billboards, the parish priest, or the priest, comes to come to her house to try and talk some sense into her into taking the billboards down, and then she launches into this triad of involvement and cover-ups.
I have so much to say about that scene.
Institutional sexual abuse in the church. She basically scolds this priest for, you know, coming to her house and trying to, you know, tell her what to do. When
I've seen people describe that scene as like McDonagh being really self-satisfied with himself, and I think a lot of people that have seen this maybe aren't familiar with some of his other work, or they're kind of instantly offended by some of the stuff he does, or that think that he's just trying to offend people with no substance. But I think that's completely missing the point of why his writing is so great. Will I just say
no?
So I think well, just to start off my initial reaction, I think the film's amazing. The first time I saw it, I loved it. It took me a while to warm up to it. I was worried that it would get a bit too much into caricature. Having watched it a second time today, just to refresh my memory, because it was 2 weeks ago, I have fell in love with this film. It's incredible. I think I was actually talking to Cynthia, who was on the last podcast, my girlfriend Cynthia, about Three Billboards the other night. We had a big discussion about it, and I was saying I love it, but In Bruges is still my favourite. And I had a similar reaction to, like, with Damien Chazelle. Like, La La Land was great, but Whiplash I prefer because it's darker. I think I'd still put them neck and neck, but it's a masterpiece. I think it's like he deserves every award that's coming his way with it.
Well, not the best director Oscar, evidently.
Because we had this big discussion about it.
Yeah.
I think he totally deserves the nomination, but then like I wouldn't kick any of those other guys out of there either. I would have actually added like 7 because Denis Villeneuve could have been in there as well.
It might have been a semi-political decision as well, because we'll get into that, like the kind of the.
Well, I haven't seen Phantom Thread yet either, so maybe he's totally deserving of the spot. I love PTA so much, but like.
But they're effectively saying that, you know, by not getting the best director Oscar, there's no way it's going to win Best Picture. Because Argo was the first in however many years to do it since Driving Miss Daisy.
We can get into Oscars anyway, but
I don't.
I just think the film continues on his tradition so well. Like, you know, I did that course in college on Martin McDonagh, so we analysed all of his plays, like every play he's ever done, because he was huge in the West End and Broadway in the 90s and early 2000s. And then I've been following his film career since in Bruges. I went back and watched Six Shooter while we were studying all those plays. I love Six Shooter as well. Like, he's already an Oscar winner, nominated for an Oscar for in Bruges as well. He's a absolutely amazing writer, and I would be a bit worried that like maybe writing his strong suit. I think in Bruges is incredibly well directed, but I was thinking, oh, maybe he won't, you know, really show his directing chops, but it's so well directed, and he tries different things, and there's so many interesting things filling out the frame. Like, it's really well composed. Even just rewatching it today, I noticed little things that I didn't pick up on the first time. The performances are so good. Frances McDormand is a badass in this, and it's not like this cliche kind of like, oh, she's a great female role because she's kicking ass. She has the gamut of emotions. She's like badass. She can be violent, be profane. She can be really, you know, grief-stricken because of her daughter's death, and then she can be the victim when it comes to her abusive ex-husband, and then she can, you know, there's so much of a gamut, and her arc is so satisfying. Sam Rockwell, I loved him the first time. I thought maybe he was a bit too cartoony the first time watching it. Having seen it again, I think his character is incredible, and even though I love Willem Dafoe in Florida Project, I think he's well deserved if he wins the Oscar, because he's been leading up to this for so long as well, because he's amazing in like Moon, Green Mile. He always plays these small kind of character actor parts, and you know, Seven Psychopaths, he's fucking class in that. I really loved him in that. He's actually, I think he was in a few plays of McDonagh's. I don't know which ones, maybe Pillowman or something in Broadway. So was what was the actor that plays the sergeant with the glasses?
Woody Harrelson?
No.
He's Slovakian. He's got Slovakian parents.
Zeljko Ivanek, and he's in Bruges, and he's in Seven Psychopaths, and he's been in a few of his plays as well. And I think he's just this actor that really knows how to say McDonagh dialogue, and McDonagh has just since kind of latched onto him, and just he'll take him anywhere with him, and he's great. He's really good in this. Woody Harrelson is brilliant as well. Like,
that was I think that was the standout performance for me. Was there's been a lot of talk of obviously Sam Rockwell being the favourite to win the Oscar, but I was really blown away by Woody Harrelson. I thought he was really, really good, and his early scenes with Frances McDormand, where they converse about, you know, his inability to find her daughter's killer, and you know how it's been tricky for him, and then, you know, his terminal health problems, and you know, the tenderness that he shows and the two of them share.
And it would be so easy, like you're saying, like that it could be heavy-handed, because McDonagh uses these really obvious signifiers. Like, he uses, like he wants to, because his plays come from this tradition of in-your-face theatre in the 90s, like Sarah Kane with Blasted, and a few other playwrights were doing this. They want to provoke you. They want to be just really obvious with some stuff, just so they can then go in depth and kind of mine it for the real kind of problems behind it. So like, maybe it's too cliche in a certain way. Like, if a different director did, oh, he has cancer, he's gonna die, that it could easily just be kind of silly. And when he first said it, I'm like, oh, where are we going with this? But they play it so straight, and we care about the characters so much. And it's the same with like all the cops being racist, or they have like a thing about the army later on where they kind of have this kind of commentary on maybe they're doing some fucked up things overseas. And everything they do, like, it's like his use with dwarfs, with having Peter Dinklage in it. Like, he wants to show you the extremes, and there are caricatures, but he then treats them like complete humans. Like he will get in depth and really like mine them for proper emotions. It's the same way with Sam Rockwell. The way I read his character the second time around is he's this unintellectual like cop who probably fell into the job, still lives with his mum. He's slow and has like a turtle or tortoise pet to kind of like signify that he's really slow at like the uptake. And I think what he's doing there, like I don't know if it's like any sort of like Trump reference or anything, but definitely like the tide of say like right wing kind of southern state
MAGA
like people
mentality.
Sorry?
Like the MAGA mentality.
Yeah, that are more kind of reactionary. Maybe not saying they're just racist, but like if this character is racist, and he is, I don't think it comes from a malevolent place. I think it comes from a place of like stupidity, maybe, or like definitely being a bit anti-intellectual. And like I was saying, like just he wants to just use his violence because he can't use his words. And what I was surprised by the second time around, I remember Sam Rockwell using the N-word, and he does, but only once. Frances McDormand throws it at him, and then she's like, "Oh, you're torturing N-words in thing," and she's like, "Oh, well, you're supposed to say persons of color, so I was torturing persons of color." So like he knows how to navigate the PC kind of world, even though he's from the southern states. So he is racist, but he's not as blatant with it verbally. Like he's blatant with it in the way that he treats black people. But then in that amazing scene, and we can go on about that, where he throws Caleb Landry Jones out the window and then he kicks him in the face. He's like, "See, I hate white people too." Like there's just an inherent kind of anger in him, but I don't think it comes from malevolence. Like there's so much to say about empathy in this film, and I'm going to get into that more in depth because I'm going to do a video essay on Martin McDonagh and empathy. But I will just say, the way, if you look at this film through a lens of empathy, it says so much about what McDonagh's trying to say about his characters. So I think if someone's violent and racist, like Sam Rockwell's character is, your initial reaction is to go, "Oh, they're a bad person, they're awful, they don't deserve redemption." But every time he does it, it's because he's empathizing. Like when he does the most violent thing in the film, when he like that amazing one shot where he goes up and he throws Caleb Landry Jones out the window, he smacks the woman in the face and he kicks Caleb Landry Jones again. That's the initial, or that's the immediate aftermath of finding out that Chief Willoughby is dead. After he committed suicide, he is like distraught, and he's doing it as an act of revenge. He's not just doing it out of like a psychopathic tendency with no empathy or anything. He's a really empathetic character, and maybe he's definitely unconventional, and he's not doing it in a healthy way, but you can see that he cares about people. And I thought that was really interesting, because then like there's one or two characters that aren't empathetic, especially the guy that is the red herring for they think he's the murderer. He's one of the most unempathetic characters in the film, and he's seen as a villain. And like, I mean, and there's a few others as well. I thought John Hawkes wasn't that empathetic, but the ex-husband, but I think he I have a theory about that as well. Anyway, but yeah, I don't know what you think about that, but like there's just every character has something to say about them with empathy. Even from like from Mildred, she isn't empathetic to the plight of the police department at first. Of course she wouldn't be, because she's grief-stricken with her daughter being raped and murdered and nothing's happening but from her point of view. But she learns, her whole arc is to learn that they're human as well. They're just as capable of flaws, but they care as well. It all kind of sums up at the end that she can see the humanity in Sam Rockwell's character as well. I just one more thing to say, but about empathy. Yeah, that was it. So the guy that came into the shop and like threatened her, and then later that Sam Rockwell, scratches on the face and gets beaten up by, he's the red herring, and he's like he's not an empathetic person, because there's strong hints that he raped someone when he was in Afghanistan or Iraq as a soldier. But then the news guys, the reporters, they are probably one of the biggest problems in the film with empathy. They stir up so much shit. Do you notice that? Like, so they're the ones that put her on TV in the first place. So it's out there more. Like, people wouldn't be down that road otherwise, because it's just a shit road. Like, no one really passes it. Of course, word would travel, but they're stirring the coals with that, I found. And then in the aftermath of Willoughby killing himself, they are the ones to go, maybe this was Mildred's fault for putting up the billboards, and they plant that little question
on it, yeah.
And it's all this like cynical fucking rolling news shit, and he has a lot to say about all the big things in America, and maybe it's just people can say it's a cliche, like, oh, because he's just this outsider trying to comment on America, so he's choosing the most obvious things. But by choosing the most obvious things, I think he doesn't just use it to like have this two-dimensional view of what's going on. He takes it and humanizes everything. But I think the news he definitely vilifies most. It's definitely the news, and like, because you think he'd vilify the institutions like the police and the army, but he definitely humanizes the police. Like even like what's the name of the character, the guy from The Wire that comes and replaces Woody Harrelson?
Oh yeah, the guy.
The actor, I can't remember his name. I'll just say he has this line in it. Oh, you know, we're not all bad guys, and he says it to Mildred. Like when the billboards go on fire. I thought that was really interesting. Just like they start off with exactly. They start off with these caricatures of police being these racist people just beating up like black guys and just being really inefficient. And then we get to the point where like they all really care, but maybe some of them don't. And it doesn't mean that they're all bad. You know, like it's just it really. Yeah, that's it. So it starts off with black and white and really goes into the grey area of every character. I found Sam Rockwell, his character just having like they ridicule him for being like stupid. He gets burnt in the fucking when the police station goes up in flames, he gets beaten the shit out of. He gets punished for his views. And I don't think it's fair to, a lot of people are saying that maybe I'm getting the wrong end of the stick here, but that because his character is racist, and by the end he's redeemed without having to confront anything about his racist tendencies, that his character is like evil, or it's like that it's an unfair and racist depiction. But I don't find that at all. I think he totally gets punished. He totally has to. The narrative punishes him multiple times, and he's always the subject of ridicule, and he's the one that we're laughing at him all the time. Like he'll trip on his chair, or he tries to throw a grape up and he won't catch it in his mouth. He's supposed to be an idiot in it, but he's trying to humanize this idiot, but he's like trying to show us that like our initial reactions to people, like if we see someone, oh, you're a racist cop, that's it, we'll write you off. But he's trying to create this dialogue that like, look, he's racist, but why is he racist? Is it because he's ill-informed? Is it because he had has he got hatred in his heart, or is he actually just really kind of reactionary and doesn't know how to deal with things? And he has this really satisfying arc, I found, that, you know, like when he gets beat up in the bar, and the two black guys are the guy that works on the billboard and the woman, I can't remember her name, that works with Mildred, are sitting at the bar. Yeah, and when he comes in with the burnt face, they're like, oh, fucking pig, or that guy. And like they have that initial reaction, but they're the ones telling the guy to stop beating him up. Like they say, like they don't want him to get beaten up. They don't like the way he acts, but they can empathize with him as well. And I found that was really interesting. I really love that he doesn't just stop at caricature. He like, even with Peter Dinklage in the restaurant when he has the dinner with her with Mildred kind of does this flippant, oh, you forced me to be here, and he's like, I didn't force you anything. And like he has this really human moment, and maybe some people think it's being played for laughs, but I think they really humanize his character as well. And he's not just like, inverted commas, the midget of the film, you know, like he has empathy as well for Sam Rockwell when he doesn't have to. Sam Rockwell ridicules him when they're playing pool at the start of the film, but when Sam Rockwell jumps out the window on fire, he's the one to put him out. And he also empathizes with Mildred, and he doesn't rat her out because he's trying to help her, and he's not trying to like force a date on her or anything. Like he's a nice guy. Like anyway, I'm repeating myself, but yeah, he takes caricatures and he really goes into the grey area of what those people really are as human beings. And I feel like it's definitely got a lot to say about the way that we treat people now, or the way people can be written off as just a label. And I love that. But anyway, I'm talking too much. Let's
no, I think
what else do you think?
Pretty much that's what I was about to say.
Ditto.
Took the words right out of my mouth. I mean, I have only seen it the once, and that was the one thing that maybe I had a problem with. I felt like it stretched kind of credulity a bit with Sam Rockwell's arc, and it was to the point where it was like a completely different performance. But like
I think it's
I think it's intentional. Yeah, like I mean, now that you say it, it just everything you just said the whole time you were talking there, I was like, God, I really want to watch it again.
I totally agree with that as well, though, man. Because not to go off on one again, the Sam Rockwell, I found him kind of cartoonish the first time, and it was mostly because he has those moments where like when they find out about the suicide and all the cops are going crazy, he's listening to the music, and then there's also a moment where he's listening to music and reading the letter from Chief Willoughby, and the fire is going on around him, and he's really stupid and comedic. But the second time around, when you first see him, he isn't just an idiot. Like, I take him seriously as a cop. Like, he's someone that actually cares about being a police officer, even if he's a bad one. Like, it's his job that he takes some sort of pride in. And I don't feel like he's just this bumbling idiot the whole way through the film. He is, like, humanized, or he's trying to at least be this tough and assertive person throughout the film. And those parts of music, like, that's just what, like you said earlier, the way that McDonagh mixes tragedy and comedy is fucking masterful. He's so good at doing that. Like in Bruges, Brendan Gleeson, spoilers for In Bruges, Brendan Gleeson jumps off the tower. He's just killed himself. We're just on the verge of tears with the On Raglan Road song in the background, and then he's like, take my gun. Colin Farrell goes to take the gun, and it's just in pieces. He's like, what am I supposed to do with this? He goes from like, you'd be nearly crying to like laughing your ass off, and he mixes it so perfectly. So I, like, the second time around, I remember thinking the suicide note, Woody Harrelson, was really sweet, and I was kind of tearing up a tiny bit. I'm such a baby about films. I cry too much. But the second time when I watched that, I cried today. Man, I don't know. Like, I think Woody Harrelson is so good in the film, and I think a lot of people go, oh well, he's not in it that much, but he's got so much meat in it. His
presence is because he ultimately is the one that is responsible for Sam Rockwell's. And
his letters are like the best part of his, like, because they just work as really nice monologues. But that line, and maybe it's cheesy, but it's just because he says it with so much sincerity. I think that's the thing. Like, McDonagh can be seen as cliche on the surface, but it's so sincere that you have to take it seriously. Because Woody Harrelson has that whole bit. It's like, oh well, I'll meet you on the other side if there is another side, and if not, it was heaven knowing you. And that might sound cheesy, but that I thought it was so sweet. Like, it's such a nice little sentiment, and just the whole letter and everything with it, like, and the way that he tries to fuck over Frances McDormand as like this last little chess move joke, like, oh, I'm paying for your billboards for another month and you'll just have to put up with it, I hope you don't die. He's such a great character. I really love him.
I was really that was like the strongest part of the film for me was his character, and then his subsequent suicide. I'm really happy that he got the Oscar nomination. Woody Harrelson, and when he was really, really good in it.
Just to finish that point, you can go back. When he kills himself, I'm like, and you read out the letter, and I'm nearly on the verge of tears. I was crying, and then it cuts straight to Sam Rockwell's character listening to this fucking stupid music, and everyone freaking out behind him, and he's like, I love that, because it's just like, I wanted to be sad, and I just couldn't stop, like, pissing myself laughing at that scene.
And then, like, a few seconds later, when he realises what's happening and he's told, we then immediately cut to him in the bathroom crying. And nobody in the cinema, because people laughed, like, when Sam Rockwell's got the earphones in and everyone behind him is crying because, Willoughby, Harrelson's character, has just killed himself. And then when it just cuts to Sam Rockwell crying into, your man's shoulder in the bathroom, like, the laughter just stopped in the cinema. It wasn't like, oh god, it's funny, he's now crying.
It's
but
not. It's never jarring though.
Yeah.
Like he no, but that's so
what,
well, like, doesn't he?
I thought the balance was really good. But after everything you've just said, like, I really, really have an appetite to watch it again.
Man, dude, like, I'll watch it a third time.
But it's I just think that was the thing I was most impressed by, because what I said about Frances McDormand, the character potentially being one-dimensional on one note, like vengeful, bitchy.
Oh, she's not
kind of cynically. No. That extends to the film as well, which could have been just a shallow kind of black comedy, drama. But as you said, like, it not only offers some kind of a commentary politically on the state of things now, it being set in Missouri, and then race being brought into it. Everything you just said about the characters, like, there's a lot of depth there, and there is just so much to the story that you just one interesting thing. It kind of reminded me a little bit of. So Martin McDonagh's brother, John Michael McDonagh, he wrote and directed
maybe.
Calvary. Yeah. So this kind of community, Calvary, which is set in the Irish village, and all the different characters and the way they interact. And that Three Billboards is similar in that, the billboard she puts up has an impact in the community, and everyone is against it. But the sense of community is a big thing in this, and it wasn't so big in Bruges and Seven Psychopaths. It was big in. It's in the McDonagh blood anyway. That's what really stuck out to me, because after we open up with the billboards and what she's done, we're introduced to all these different characters, how they interact with each other, and how they react to Frances McDormand's character Mildred, how they react to Mildred's actions of putting up the billboards, and it's just that sense of kind of community, and everyone kind of either being with or against the protagonist.
And also the small-minded way that, like small town communities, or like in the kind of rural areas, they can be very small-minded or reactionary, and that was a kind of interesting microcosm for the way that things in the States can operate sometimes as well. I thought that was interesting. Or definitely with because it had its own little news service and everything. A lot of people were saying that, why wouldn't she just it's nowadays she just use a hashtag and get her point. But she doesn't want to get it on a national level. She wants to change the community in some way, and she wants to make the community look at themselves. And I found sorry.
No, go on.
Talking about the priest scene, this is a great moment about empathy as well, because there's this line that the priest has, and I didn't pick up on it the first time. The second time, after Mildred has compared the priests, or maybe it's slightly before, when Mildred compares the priests to a gang, and that they're just as culpable for something as the Crips and Bloods would be in LA. If he's sitting upstairs smoking a pipe and one of the priests is raping a child, then it's his fault because he's part of the gang. That point. And then after, he's you don't realize how deeply people care about these things because you don't come to church. And he's got this kind of pompous kind of moral authority thing where he's saying that you can't be empathetic, you can't have empathy unless you're coming to church all the time. I thought that was really interesting, because it's everyone has these claims to what empathy is, and you have to go to church to be empathetic, or you have to not be racist, but everyone has these different ideas about empathy, and they instantly, because of the news and everything, and because of the intense reaction to the billboards, they just assume Mildred's unempathetic. But in a way, she's kind of doing what McDonagh's doing, maybe. She is trying to provoke people just to get a reaction, rather than she doesn't really hate what's happening, but she is so pissed off that she is using her anger to provoke a reaction. And then even Willoughby turns out appreciating it. He doesn't take it as a slight against him, even though everyone else thinks that's the reason he committed suicide. He sees it as this chess move. He sees it as a reason to start a dialogue again. And even with the billboards themselves, the image of them, it's so cinematic. It's such an interesting. I love, and it's all. That's why I know a lot of people be annoyed at the ending, that it might seem abrupt. It's kind of similar to No Country for Old Men in that way as well. That it's this really intense kind of nearly a genre piece that a broader audience would like No Country, that's a thriller, but then it has this kind of artistic or kind of
ambiguity.
Yeah, an ambiguous ending, and it brings it back around to being a kind of inverted commas art house film again. And I love the ending so much, but if you look at the title itself, it wasn't about the murders. It was about Three Billboards, and it was about what they did and the immediate aftermath of what happens when you put those up. And also, I think as an image, the Three Billboards, we find out, or it's hinted at very strongly, that that's where their daughter died, and she was burnt and raped at that
grass
point.
That's burnt.
They work nearly like a tombstone. I found, because she starts putting flowers. That was interesting
because we see the burnt grass. When Mildred goes to the billboards, or when characters are actually it's within the first few minutes of the film, Sheriff Willoughby and Woody Harrelson and Sam Rockwell's character are at the billboards, and they're kind of Sam Rockwell's going off on Mildred for putting them up, and I think Woody Harrelson, he's
don't distract me. What midgets?
He squats down, and isn't there burnt grass there, and that's it heavily implied that this is the crime scene. This is where her daughter was
I love that they didn't implicitly say it either. I thought that was really interesting.
To me, it was obvious when they showed it, but I can see how you'd maybe miss it. But it does add a layer of significance that the same area, the same location where her daughter was raped, murdered, and burnt to death was where the billboards are.
So
the billboards serve the purpose, not so much the revenge story of is she going to find the guy and are they going to...
Yeah, they have so much importance, for lack of a better word. They're really they're really significant to her. Like she keeps going back to them, and you're like, oh, why is she so protective of the billboard? Of course, it's like visiting a grave, and like she has the whole moment with the deer, and but when she gets the call from Sam Rockwell towards the end, and they find out that the guy actually wasn't the killer, that was a beautiful moment. She's like starts to hit her face a bit, and like she's always there with her daughter, and it's her closest connection to her daughter. But I saw this great comment, and I can't take credit for it because I saw it on Reddit. But there's a really good point that if she died there, and that's in view of the house, then she was raped and murdered within view of her home. She was nearly home. Isn't that? And it makes it all the more like terrible and tragic, like that she was so close to being home, and then she gets murdered.
And then we also, in the flashback when she has the argument with the daughter, and it's like, fine, I hope I get raped. I hope you get raped too. And then it cuts back to and
again, some people might say that's too like convenient or
on
like
the
stupid,
nose.
but like it's also the kind of things that could be said in certain families as well.
So her last moments with the daughter was this unpleasant exchange
and
where
he's using
they had
that
a
to
fight and
provoke people as well.
But that's what drives the character. It's not just a straight up, my daughter was killed and now she's obviously feeling herself a lot of guilt over what she said, the last thing she said to her daughter before she was raped and murdered. But what you said there is huge, actually, which I didn't think of. Like throughout the film, when Mildred is on her front lawn sitting on the swings, it is within view of the billboards.
That gets into the directing. I think that's shot of because there's an image system where it's reused. So sitting on the swings, and you can see the three billboards in the background. It's so perfectly composed so they have the three billboards as always the reminder there. It's a visual reminder of what's really going on. But there's a bit with the cops, and this is her arc about growing empathy for the police. When she's sitting on the swing first, she's on the left-hand side. Woody Harrelson's standing and leaning over and saying, look, I don't think those billboards are very fair, and all this, and they have this whole interchange. That's the start of the film, so that's how it starts out, kind of antagonistic relationship with the police. But then he sits down and she learns that he has cancer, but then Mildred goes, oh, well, yeah, of course I have to put them up now, like there won't be much use if you croak. But so that starts off with this kind of unempathetic scene. Sorry to keep going on about empathy. Yeah. But then at the end, when Woody Harrelson comes over, when Sam Rockwell comes over to tell her that he might have a potential suspect,
they're on the swing set again.
Yeah, and he's on the left side, she's on the right side. He's leaning into her, but they're both sitting down, and it's way less antagonistic. They're on the same playing field, like physically and emotionally. They both, and she isn't argumentative. She's grateful that he brought this information to her, even though he's the guy that she's had so much hate towards, or at least complete disdain for. And I found that really interesting because those two scenes put side by side sum up the arc so well, even just the police arc, and I just love that. Anyway, but sorry, you're in the middle.
No, well, that goes back to what you were saying about repetition, how that's one of the final shots in the film mirrors one of the opening shots.
Repetition.
She's with Woody Harrelson, and I mean, it's kind of hard to top everything you've said. I don't really have much to contribute, only what I thought.
Oh no, man! But like, it's just I'm just coming from this point of view that I've read all his plays, and I'm a big faffy fucking wanker from like.
No, but you know him as an actor and an artist, whereas I would kind of I more so went into it kind of. Oh, I heard this is really good, and I really really like In Bruges. And I wasn't huge on like Seven Psychopaths, and I was also kind of
Seven Psychopaths is a lesser kind of like he wanted to just do it as a fun film. Yeah, I think it's a great little crime caper, and there's some really great moments of writing in it as well. But it's not at the same level.
Yeah.
Like it's not awards worthy in the same way that these two are.
Well,
but,
where it works really well well, with this film, like, this was definitely like his boldest, like his boldest film. Like, going into it, I was like, there's a lot kind of hanging on this, and it's,
if he failed, like, that could be not the end, but like this is his first big American film.
Yeah,
like he has a lot to live up to with In Bruges behind it and everything. And, but
no, I and again, like, overall, I think he can count himself unlucky that he missed out on a Best Director nomination.
You know what? Scorsese didn't win till Departed. Like,
it's and it's not all
okay.
About awards, but
he'll be fine.
I don't know. It's just something not right about it.
It's a good thing though, right? In some ways, you could look at it as a good thing because he's been nominated for Best Screenplay for In Bruges. He won an Oscar already for short film. I know it's not the same sort of Oscar, but this will win Oscars. This could very well win Best Picture. It's a lock for Best Actress. Very likely Best Supporting. I would be shocked if he doesn't win Best Screenplay. I think he will. But isn't it like, if he is growing as a director, and I think he's a great director now. Not to be fucking, that's really patronizing. Like, he's a great director, but he never directed his plays. Really, I don't think he only started with In Bruges, and he's really grown as a director to someone that's a proper auteur now. I think this might even like motivate him to, and not that he would ever rest on his laurels because he's got a huge body of work behind him and they're all so solid, but he's going to continue to make great films like this, because even not that like he would be solely motivated by getting a Best Director Oscar. That's silly, but like, he's can continue making great films. He won't go, look, I made my masterpiece, I don't have to make anything anymore. Like, he can make loads more Seven Psychopaths, which are great, but like nothing really kind of like prestigious, or I think he's got a fucking huge career ahead of him, man. He's gonna be he's the new Tarantino, which is it's not like a completely fair comparison because he's completely his own thing as well, and he was writing plays at the same time that Tarantino was making Pulp Fiction and stuff. But I think he's got this fucking huge career ahead of him. I have one or two more things to say. Can we talk about John Hawkes, the ex-husband character? I have so much to say about that, and I know this takes the piss out of the whole point of the film. Is that I know a lot of people are annoyed that we don't find out who actually killed the daughter, but this is just a theory, and I don't think, like, I've spoken to Cynthia about it and she disagrees, and I posted it on Reddit and stuff and people disagree with me. I don't know. I think there's definitely significance in the way they present his character though. So look at it like this. He's exactly. He's violent. He's shown to be violent against Mildred, grabbing her and putting her up to and like to the point that the son, Lucas Hedges, had to put a knife to his throat. So he's scared that it could get really violent. So obviously there's a past there, and he was an abusive husband. He used to be a cop. That's only mentioned in passing by Woody Harrelson by saying, "Oh yeah, like since he retired from the police, in the bit where he coughs in her face." That's another great moment of empathy, because like it goes from this kind of argument between them, and then when he coughs blood in Mildred's face, she's like, "Oh baby, are you okay?" This kind of anyway. But there's so much to say about empathy. Back to John Hawkes' character. So he's police. He's violent against his wife. He has, like you said, he has this young girlfriend, 19 years old, that quite the same age as his daughter, which if it was, it's definitely like, we've seen the way that McDonagh writes, and he writes to provoke and to get on people's nerves, or to like not necessarily offend, but sometimes offend. He did that on purpose. He did, like, even just to the point of, there's that saying like, "Oh, he's old enough to be your dad." And like she's saying, "Look, fucking 19-year-olds isn't going to bring your daughter back." He's like, "Yeah, but I know that." And there's definitely supposed to be some sort of correlation between his daughter and then like he's fucking a 19-year-old, even just in a way to make you feel uncomfortable and to even like question him as a character. And on top of that, he's the one that burns the billboards down, and he apologizes for it, but he did it while he was drunk. Like, if he had any sort of empathy for Mildred, and I think he does because he apologizes, but he knows that's where she died, and he knows that the billboards really matter to Mildred, but he completely bypasses that and doesn't think about what effect it would have on Mildred, and he burns them down. And not the fact that he just destroys them, but by burning, there's a direct comparison to the way that the daughter died. So like, when you turn around the corner, you can see the reaction on Frances McDormand's face. It's amazing acting. Like, when she sees the flames and you see it reflected in the windscreen, that's just like an instant moment of trauma, like bringing back all of this trauma. Like, her daughter was burnt while being raped, but like burnt to death, and in the same place you see him fire again, and it's something that could maybe help her find the killer of her daughter. Like, it's such a cruel thing to do that I know this. I think Martin McDonagh would know who killed the daughter. What's her name again? I can't remember the name of the daughter. He would know who did it. Maybe it never matters. No one's ever gonna guess, or it doesn't. You know, it's not important to the story anyway. I had a theory when I first watched it that it was John Hawkes, that he killed his daughter, or at least we're kind of led to doubt him as a character to the point that, oh, maybe, you know, I wonder why he did that, but there are definite little signifiers there to compare the crime to the dad, or there's definitely like there's seeds of doubt sown the whole way through that I found, and there's definitely something there. I haven't fully figured out why. Maybe he didn't kill the daughter. Like that would be the most like heinous thing, but there's definitely something there. I think. Like, I don't think none of that is by accident. He's a very clever writer, and he does these things on purpose. So I don't know. What do you think? There's anything there? Or who would you thought was the killer, or do you think it doesn't matter?
I thought coming away from it, like I thought the whole point of the film was that it ultimately didn't matter, and I thought, you know, the film was at the same time as making a statement about retaliation and, you know, wanting to commit violence, but
anger
also,
begetting
anger. Exactly, yeah, anger begets anger. She said begets.
I read it on a bookmark. Polio.
What I thought the film mostly had a lot to say about grief, and, you know, the end of the film when Sam Rockwell and, you know, Frances McDormand ride off together to, you know, they're not sure if they're going to do what they're going to do to the guy who we were all led to believe did it, but then we're told, you know, didn't kill the daughter. I thought that was like both of the characters are in their own way kind of grieving, and they're kind of leaning on each other.
And the final moment is a little glance from Mildred to him, like she's kind of like, oh, I guess, you know, I can see the human side of him, and after all, like, it's just the two of them sitting in the car, this two shot, and this little glance, and then cut to credits. Yeah. Thought, you know,
and they're going to potentially, you know, commit a
I don't think they're gonna
terrible crime,
because they have that moment where they're like, you know, it was this.
We'll discuss it on the way.
Yeah, but there's this anger kind of knee jerky kind of thing, and then they kind of talk about it, and they go, "Do you think we're actually gonna kill him? Oh, I don't know. Oh, I don't know either. Let's discuss it on the way."
Like, it's like the Italian Job, that whole thing of how did it end or what happened after the credits rolled. And for me, what would happen is they would literal, not obviously as cliffhanger. It's not a cliffhanger ending. No, it's not. But
it's abrupt in some ways, but not.
Well, I thought it tied up nicely.
It's abrupt for, I think, for people that were expecting it as a murder mystery. People would find it abrupt, but I think it just like No Country for Old Men, it sums up the narrative perfectly while being like maybe sudden, but it's sudden in another way to provoke you. It's kind of like, this is what it was all about. It's kind of like,
what did you think you were watching? Yeah, we're not going to give you the answer. There's not going to be a heroic shootout, and you know, my ending after the credits roll is they drive for a few hours and just talk about each other's grief and how they're feeling, and then they turn around and come home. But they turn the journey into an emotional heart to heart on.
I would love if they turned into this Bonnie and Clyde kind of characters going around the States, like seeking retribution on rapists and, you know, people that have done things like just in my little fantasy. Like, you know, I'll watch 4 Billboards.
4 Billboards. It was I thought that's what I inferred from it. You know, I had looked at the film as like very much something about grief and anger, and, you know, Woody Harrelson's character is somebody who his suicide is very abrupt, and I was like, God, that's so selfish. Like, I know he's dying terminally and no one wants to die badly like that, but he did it in his house and stuff. But his letter summed it up nicely, where it was him being able to let go, and he's alleviating the long-term suffering that his wife and kids will have if they were to witness him die from the ravages of cancer. Whereas the suicide now, it seems terrible and seems awful and violent and selfish,
but it was
but
bittersweet
in the short
as well,
run,
because it was his perfect day,
because it will help, and it'll offset, you know, the real.
I love that image. Sorry, the image of the hood he puts on his head, and it's just such a great moment of storytelling, because it's just like, don't open the bag, just call the guys, and you have a strong sense that he's going to kill himself then, but it has this instant kind of dread when he puts it on. You're like, oh no, but like, it's such an original kind of storytelling device as well, because it's not like he's putting it in the letter. It's just a perfect, like, yeah, of course that's the first thing she's gonna see. She'll see his head, and then we don't even see her finding the body. The wife, who's the Australian actress that plays her? I think she's in Seven Psychopaths as well. Abby Cornish, yeah. And it just cuts to the guys taking it off, and I love that as like a device. Like it was really original. I found the film as a whole was really original as well, because it took cliche, or what would seem like cliche or caricature, and in doing that took it in different, like they take the caricatures and put them in situations that you never see them in Hollywood films. Like you don't like, and they would it's really well edited as well. I find that it's very brisk, and it chops between the two storylines really well. So at the start it's like Woody Harrelson's family life cut in intercut with Mildred's, and you know, obviously it always keeps it fresh, because it would just do one segment on Woody, one segment on Frances McDormand, and it's always going back and forth, and we're really intrigued what's going on. I thought that the editing was great, but what was I thinking? Yeah, just the way that, like with that scene where Woody Harrelson is like admonishing her for, you know, torturing the dentist, and she's like, oh, it's just my word against his, like every other woman in the world who's been raped, you know, and then they're having this kind of like back and forth where they're trying to antagonize each other, and he coughs in her face, and she just instantly changes because she's an empathetic person. Yeah. And she's not cruel. She's not someone that's just trying to be vindictive and hurt the cops.
There's a lot of tenderness
about
there,
him.
between the two of them, and that was a testament to, you know, the depths that the film went to, because it could have very easily, you know.
I love that though, as even just as a commentary on humans, because so many people, there's so much anger nowadays, and not to get into politics or anything, but we're living in a very angry time, and he's definitely commenting on that. Like, I think this was made long before like everything that's happening now, but even in the last few years things have gotten so divisive and so angry, and it's often, especially on the internet, it's often hard to see someone as a human. All you see is something that pisses you off that they've said, and there's no face behind it. It's just this anonymous person trolling you on Twitter or on Reddit, and it makes people more and more divided, to the point where everyone's far over on the right or far over on the left, and it's really polarized. But when it shows the human side of things just in a small town, I love that. It's like she's pissed off at the cops, but she notices them as humans as well. Like they're not just a gun and a badge, they're people, and they have like family troubles too. Like he's dying of cancer, like even like Sam Rockwell is like grieving terribly when he dies because he's been really close to him, and like even like Sam Rockwell's mother has a really great moment. She's Mac's mum from It's Always Sunny, and
when he comes in,
that's a great part to get, like, for her, because I wonder, maybe she has been in other things I haven't seen her in, but like imagine like getting an Oscar worthy film like after being in Always Sunny. But she's great in it. I love that moment where he comes back from being beaten up and he's just rushing to get the DNA. That's a fucking great story moment, like where he scratches the guy and takes the DNA. Actually, Cynthia, I'll give Cynthia credit for this, and she'll like this. She turned to me as soon as he scratched the face. She's like, "Oh, the DNA," and I'm so slow. I never picked up on it. I'm like, "Oh, of course, that's amazing."
It wasn't until he got to the bathroom and picked it out with his fingernails. I was like, "Oh, that's
genius.
What it was."
It's so good, and like even just the whole. Anyway, I'll just say about the mother first. But the mother just crying and banging on the door, and he's like, "No, I'm okay, Mom. I'm just okay," and she's just terrified to see her son hurt. So like she's racist, and in some ways you could say that the way that she mothers Sam Rockwell made him a racist person. The way he was brought up, you could easily write her off like that. She's just a racist character, stupid, whatever. But no, she's not. She's living in a poor neighborhood. She's probably badly educated, same way that Sam Rockwell was never good at English. She likes
Nicholas Rogue as well.
Yeah, so well, maybe she isn't.
She has good taste.
She likes Donald Sutherland. That's why she was watching it.
Yeah, well,
maybe she just likes those sex scenes.
Maybe. Who does?
They were supposed to be real, weren't they? There's a theory.
Yeah.
Her character has that great moment as well. Every character has this payoff that is just so satisfying. Even like Red, who's played by Cable Andrew Jones, he could go apeshit when Sam Rockwell is brought into his hospital room, but he has that beautiful moment of empathy where he's shaking so angry, but then he just gets orange juice and he puts it down beside him, he's like, stop crying, the salt getting your wounds. And then Sam Rockwell's like, I thought salt was good for you.
Yeah.
But I just love that bit when he turns the straw towards him, and then we have this moment, and I love this as well from a technical standpoint, that McDonagh used POV, point of view shots in really like important moments. So you have Sam Rockwell's point of view, hindered by the bandages, looking at Caleb Landry Jones, then looking at the orange juice again, and it's this perfect moment of empathy for the audience, because we can totally see from his point of view what he cares about, because he's looking at the orange juice and he's looking at him, and you can see this arc. And I think it's so unfair that people are just writing his character off as this racist who doesn't deserve any redemption, because there's so many moments where he earns his redemption slowly but surely. Like, he's not a perfect person by the end of the film, far from it, but like he's a person, and he's got flaws, and he totally deserves to be in that car with her at the end. And like, there's so many moments like that. But and talking about point of view shots, Abby Cornish, when she hears the gunshot, Woody Harrelson, and runs towards the kitchen and sees the letter,
the envelope,
that's all POV, and it's this like shaky kind of POV to kind of add tension to the scene. That's a great moment as well, because we didn't actually see the letter. We see the him sitting at the table writing it and the voiceover, but then just to imagine the dread of hearing a gunshot and then finding a letter with your name on it. You know exactly what's happened. That's such a great visual signifier. Like, even if we didn't see him shoot himself and we didn't hear him saying, look, I've killed myself, if we just heard gunshot, her walk out, point of view, seeing her name on a letter, you know exactly what's happened. Like, there's great direction moments in it. I think McDonagh's fantastically directed the film. He'll get his dues. Like, he's gonna win best screenplay.
Yeah, no, like, it doesn't say anything. You know, it's, you know, the Oscars aren't to be on that.
I think also, sorry to go off on one again, I just have so much to love about this film, but the age we live in now with Twitter and everyone's a critic, myself included. I've fucking started a YouTube channel and this stuff. Like, everyone's a critic. Everyone wants to be offended, and there's definite cause to be offended by certain films. And I'm not saying you're wrong if you're offended by Three Billboards. Fair enough, you're entitled to your opinion. But I think so many people are offended by Three Billboards, and just they completely write it off and they say it's shit. It's the same way that people go, and I think it's also connected to the accolades it's getting. You see Birdman wins Best Picture, wins all these awards. Everyone's like, I didn't think it was that good, you know. And I saw so many people said to me, Birdman is shit, or it's a terrible film, and it's just so simplistic, because we live in this world now that everything's either amazing or shit, and it's like, you can't. I don't care if you didn't like the story of Birdman. Fair enough, you can say you didn't like it, it was bad, it was mediocre story, whatever. If you look at Birdman and see shot all in one shot with clever cuts, like, it's a technical marvel, and to say it's a bad film, it's just, it completely detracts from any sort of commentary on the film, and it's just like, that's my take on it, that's my hot take on the film, and no matter what you say, I'm never going to agree with you. And it's just that's exactly the way the world is now. It's really kind of reactionary and very divisive, and like, I think it's shit, so it is shit. And people are saying that about Three Billboards now, and I think it's so unfair. But it's also this kind of, oh, it's popular, I didn't like it, so it's not good. But I find that's, like, I mean, of course, film is subjective. Everything's like subjectivity when it comes to art, but there is also good and bad when there's a craft involved. It's very well directed, it's very well cut, it's amazingly well acted, and the direction is really good, and the writing is perfect. Like, coming from, like, we're both filmmakers, you can see, like, we write scripts. If we could write like Martin McDonagh, like, imagine he knows what he's doing. And I found, like, on Twitter, like, a few people, I shouldn't go on Twitter, it's stupid. I saw people giving out about Three Billboards, and they'd have like a gif like saying, oh, this is how McDonagh felt when he wrote the monologue about the priests, and it's just like someone really self-satisfied with themselves. And I'm like, he's not being cocky, he's trying to provoke. Yeah, maybe you can see it as easy that he's just talking about the most obvious issues of the day, but he's using them to speak about humanity on a broader level. I don't think it's lazy writing at all. It's very well written, and it's like, yeah, I don't know. That's a rant anyway, but like, I don't know. It's just unfair, I think, just to write things off like that. And I feel like people, like, it's just, this is coming from like a film buff perspective, where I've watched like I go to cinema every week, so it's not everyone's into it so much, and it's definitely not necessarily a film with broad appeal. I think it like on the whole maybe not, but it's definitely popular. Like if the cinema people were always laughing really loud both times I saw it. The second, actually today, there was a few people that clearly didn't like it, and as soon as the credits rolled, they just ran out. But I sat in my seat for about 2 or 3 minutes after the film watching the credits today, and I looked behind me and there was like 15 other people sitting watching the credits, and I never see that. People usually leave, or like, you know, they'll just be talking all the way through. People were affected by this film, I think, and people love it. Oh yeah, that's what I wanted to get on. So there's always been controversy with Tarantino and his use of the N-word and his depiction of black people. Pulp Fiction, when it came out, it was a bit controversial. When it won the Palme d'Or, all the French elite kind of cinema goers hated that. Trois Couleurs Rouge, Three Colors Red by
Kieslowski.
Yeah. Because that's an amazing film, and that's, you know, that probably deserved it as much. Look at people's reaction to Pulp Fiction now. It's a cult film. It's not even just a cult film. It's a classic from the 90s. Everyone loves Tarantino. And it was Reservoir Dogs, but Pulp Fiction was the defining film of his career that made everyone love him so much. And I find this is nearly McDonagh's Pulp Fiction in a way. You can kind of say that. But like, I think all the controversy that's going on now is just an initial reaction. Like the same way that you have the initial reactions of the characters and stuff. And when 10 years from now, people are going to look back and go, alright, that's an amazing film. Or it's going to have a big audience still. It's not going to be a film that people forget. I think this is like a landmark film. I don't think it's like, I mean, I love Yorgos Lanthimos, like you make Dogtooth, Lobster, and Killing the Sacred Deer. You love Killing the Sacred Deer, right? He is probably the most original director working nowadays, especially with, you know, with big names. Maybe McDonagh isn't as original as him in some respects, but this is an incredibly original film, I think. And it's if it wins Best Picture, it totally deserves it. It's such a great, solid film. Like it's, yeah. Anyway, I'm talking too much, but
no, I think you've just transformed my perspective on it. I mean, I really, really enjoyed it, and I think the film had a lot of things to say, but sitting here listening to you talk has been a joy, and I think I really want to watch it again. Aww. Isn't Richie great, guys?
Subscribe, please.
No, like I don't really know what to say.
No, man, like I don't know. Is there anything else?
It's been nearly 2 weeks since I've seen it, but
see it again, man. Like I remember when I came out. We can get into star ratings. I thought one of the best films I've seen of the year when I first saw it. I had some flaws and I had some concerns with it, the same that you've said about some of the depiction and stuff. And when I watched it again, I just saw how clever it is. It's so like everything I've said already, but it's definitely worth revisiting.
Yeah.
If you like it but didn't love it, I definitely recommend like seeing it again. To anyone that's listening. If you hate it, I'd love to see why you hate it, and even after hearing some of the things that we've said, I would love to like discuss that in the comments anyway. But do you have anything else to say before we get into what would you give it out of 5 if you give it a star rating? No, if you don't want to.
Well, I mean, coming out of it, like, you know, I would have said a 4 out of 5, but yeah. I feel like if when I see it again, it might get bumped up to a 5. But I don't walk away from a film going, oh yeah, it's a 4 out of 5.
That's my problem, man. I do that too much now, and I've been doing that for the last year because I write every film down in my little notebook and like give it a star rating, and it can be really reductive because like if you liked a film and it was 4 stars because it was a solid blockbuster, and then you have a 4-star like film that's great but didn't really live up to like a 5-star kind of thing. They're not comparable.
Yeah,
like it's more it's just a way of kind of getting across the experience you had. So is it a 4-star experience, a 5-star experience? It doesn't mean that the film is necessarily 8 out of 10 if it's 4 stars, or, you know, like rating films is kind of silly anyway, but like it's just a handy way of kind of getting across what you felt about the film. But honestly, I give it 5 out of 5. There was some bits in it where, like, when I first saw it, like I said, that I was thinking, oh, what's this film going with, or maybe it's not going to really live up to In Bruges, because In Bruges is one of my favourite films. And no, I think it's a masterpiece. It's amazing. And oh yeah, just my favorite scene, just to get back to that one shot when Sam Rockwell's character finds out about Chief Willoughby dying, and he looks out the window and he's like, okay, Caleb Landry Jones, I'm coming for you. Fucking just the music in the background, everything is just so atmospheric, and we have this emotion build up from the suicide and the immediate aftermath, and it's just so cinematic. It's amazing. Like, it's just, he pulls out the baton, smashes the glass, climbs through, takes out the gun, and we have this slow dread while we're going up the stairs, this perfect low angle shot to create this even more kind of menacing image of him. What's he going to do with the gun? Is he going to murder him? And you're immediately, because we've already got these narrative seeds planted that, like, you know, he already hates the guy, he already grabbed him and had to be, you know, restrained by the other cops. You're sure that he's going to murder him, and just, it's just so, like, dreadful, but in a way that, like, it's just, you just dread the whole thing. It goes in and just, it's just so, I don't know, like, for me, like, personally, I found it really affecting, that scene. Just, it's not just violence for violence sake, it's violence because he's so upset, and it's so human. I've seen people do that in real life. I've seen people violently react to something on a knee jerk, and it's terrifying, and it just upends, like, society, the way we see society, and, like, you know, it just shows this kind of undercurrent of what can happen if all hell breaks loose. And when he throws him out the window, there's that awful moment where you're like, shit, he could be dead, he could have landed on his neck or something, and he smacks the woman in the face. And it's not like, I think he's used violence like this against women before in a comedic way. That's horrifying as well in this film, though. I mean, like, I think like even in this film, like, with Mildred, when she kicks the girl in the groin, that's like great for laughs. But here it's just terrifying, and we're not, and all the time this is happening, Sam Rockwell is just this fucking beast of a character that you're terrified of him because he's unpredictable. But it's not just evil for evil's sake. There's a reason he's doing all this. There's anger and resentment. Exactly, man. It's like, he's not a terrible person. Like, he's doing a terrible thing, but he's doing it from a way that we can totally see where he's coming from. We've seen his relationship, or, like, definitely he's got a certain closeness to Woody Harrelson. And just when he goes down and, like, kicks him again, and it's a perfect little moment in the way that it sets up story as well. It's his immediate reaction to the suicide, but then when he comes back down to the police station, the new captain is there waiting outside, and he completely dismisses him, like, what are you looking at? You know, doesn't realize that he's the new captain. I'm just gonna double check his name because I'd feel bad not, because he was amazing in The Wire. Oh yeah, Clark Peters. Yeah. Now, Clark Peters is very good in it as well, and he kind of presents that kind of moral side of the cops. And I found that really, I don't know, I mean, like, a lot of people can be, I've heard that people are saying that, like, what right does this white director have to depict black characters, or, like, be on their side or something? I think it's so unfair. Like, it's just a human, he's trying to humanize everyone, he's trying to see the human side of everything, and, like, why doesn't he have the right to, like, tell these stories?
You're always going to get that with a film like this, with, you know, people making, you know, people.
It's in John Wick as well.
Talking about the significance of the racial undertones and how well they're handled or not handled. It's
definitely a valid argument, and of course, like, you want people that have some sort of authentic background telling these stories. This isn't. I think this is just a universal story he's telling. It's great, and, like, it's not like he's kind of trying to tell people what it's like to be black in the South, and there isn't. Maybe it's bad that there isn't any, like, really prominent characters that are African American, and that you just have the white people squabbling amongst themselves, like, oh, you're just, you know, torturing black people, and maybe that's what people have issue with. Fair enough, but I don't know. Like, I mean,
I think there's still chances. Not to take anything away from the film. Like, I think everything you've said is pretty valid, and it certainly will compel me to watch it again very soon, because. Yeah, it's not as easy. You can't just go and watch it and go, oh yeah, I didn't really deal with this, that, and the other. I mean, when you read some of the reviews from the film, from, you know, some of the chief film critics, you get, like,
clickbait articles on this film being
you get some you get some interesting things being said, but
hot takes.
Yeah, but I think there's a lot to be said for watching the movie. Not that they necessarily haven't watched it a few times, but to see it a few times. I read one article, I can link it in the description, but it really rubbed me up the wrong way. But they were talking about how the film rubbed them up the wrong way. It's like they had this initial reaction when they watched it. Maybe I'm paraphrasing unfairly,
but they were saying, look, it's just this terrible film, and everyone else around me was laughing, but every subsequent scene made me hate the film more because it's just so like problematic racially, and the way it's treating like black people and women and stuff. I'm like, that's not, the film isn't doing that, the characters are doing that. He's commenting on these characters, but having bad characters in a film doesn't mean the film is saying that, you know. Like, it's a very simplistic way, I think, to look at the film. But
it's a very easy way to criticize it as well.
And like, it's easy to piss people off and just go, maybe someone would just read a review like that and go, oh, I'm not going to see the film now, I must be racist, you know. And like, it's just so simplistic. Like, it's a great film anyway. Yeah, but
it's compelled me to see it again. Like, I mean, definitely warrants multiple viewing.
I want to watch all three again. I want to go back to In Bruges. I've seen Seven Psychopaths like 3 times, I think, but In Bruges I've already seen maybe 20.
In Bruges is great.
Anyway, that's all. We should have another podcast within the next week or two, potentially talking about Shape of Water. We might go on to talk about the rest of the Oscar films as well once we've seen everything. We're still waiting on Lady Bird and Phantom Thread to come out in Ireland. They're February, aren't they? I think they're kind of early February.
Phantom Thread is tomorrow week.
Oh, perfect. Yeah. Oh, well, we're nearly at February now anyway. So I'd say mid-February we're going to have a proper sum up of all the Best Picture nominees. So that's all from us to Filmywatchlist podcast this time. So Richard Keeney, and I've been joined by
David Devoy.
Thanks very much, guys, and please feel free to comment in the comment section below and tell me what you thought of Three Billboards.